So again, I'm talking about endings tonight and transformation. And our first story is, gosh, it is poignant. It really, I've read this story multiple times and I cry every time I read it. So if when I come back on stage, my eyes are red, it's because someone's been cutting onions in here, y'all. It's not because I'm crying again. But I'm going to add the author to the stage and I'm going to provide you with her biography. Nicola Kapron has previously been published in Neopsis Science Fiction Magazine, Duck Prince Press, Sotera Press, All Worlds Wayfarer, and Manison Press, among others. Nicola lives in British Columbia with a horde of books, mostly fantasy and horror, and an extremely fluffy cat. And I'll be dropping her social media into the comments box. Nicola, whenever you're ready, go ahead and start reading.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate the hype. I am now extremely nervous about not living up to the hype, but we all have to deal with imposter syndrome at some point or another. So, I guess, without further ado, let's crack this open, and I'll read a little bit from my short story in this collection. It's called Dirt and Ashes, but Not Bones. All right. Once you were safely inside, you Googled Big Red Vulture, more on impulse than any actual hope of finding an explanation. You had very little hope to go around. You scrolled through a river of turkey vulture pics for a few minutes before giving up and turning your phone off. Turkey vultures were familiar beasts. The sight of their bald red heads and dark, eagle-like bodies was almost nostalgic. The thing circling above you right now was something different entirely. You stole glances out the window, craning your sore neck for a better view. She was big, bigger than a bird should be, condor-sized, perhaps. You'd never seen one of those in person, but judging by the pictures online, the size seemed about right. The color was off, though. Condors were black and brown. Her feathers were bright, brilliant scarlet, like she had been dipped in blood. The shape was wrong, too. She might be about the same size as a condor, but you knew something was up the moment you spotted arms. The angel of death circled over your car, her broad vulture wings spread wide to catch the air, and you sat in the front seat, wondering if you should wave to her. This felt like a meeting long overdue. You didn't need to look up the life expectancy of a woman diagnosed with heart failure after 5 years. The information lived in your head rent-free. About half of those diagnosed with congestive heart failure would survive 5 years. You were not going to beat the odds. You heard once that some types of condors could soar for 100 miles without beating their wings. The vulture woman following you wasn't a condor, but her wings were as strong. If she wasn't perched on something, she was circling overhead, all her brilliant red feathers stark against the sun. She circled and circled, but never approached. The steady distance was almost reassuring. Sometimes you tried to take pictures of her. She never showed up right in the image. Digital, Polaroid, even video. They captured broad wings, but the details were lost in the harsh glare of sunlight. They never captured her face, or her hands. All the parts of her that were human remained obscure. Once, a coworker walked up as you scowled down at a particularly annoying failure and whistled. "That's a big bird." He craned his neck back and searched the sky. His gaze moved right past where she glided without a trace of awareness. "Where'd you find it?" "Saw it around the office," you told him. "I'm not sure what it was, and this picture isn't helping." He squinted at your phone again. "Some kind of raptor? It's got the feet of one." You hadn't really noticed that her talons were visible in this shot. It didn't really matter. Her feet were entirely vulture feet. "It was soaring in circles," you said. "I couldn't make out the head, but I thought it might be some kind of vulture." "Huh, maybe. But I don't think it's native." "A transplant, huh?" You nodded to yourself and stowed your phone away. That would make sense. She certainly didn't look like a native bird. And if your tired, sick heart skipped a beat at the thought of her soaring across entire countries just to circle over your head, well, your heart was failing you anyways. Nobody else cared what it did anymore. Just you. And now, her. Your nights were difficult, spent tossing and turning, trying to prop yourself up enough to keep from coughing without making it impossible to sleep. Every morning, you woke to a shadow outside the window and a creeping ache spreading through you. You kept putting on weight overnight. Your ankles swelled like ripe fruit. If you closed your eyes and lay very still, you could feel your body grinding to a halt. The vulture woman sat on the electric poles, then the nearby rooftops, and then, finally, the roof over your neighbor's balcony. Always, she watched from beneath a mane of wild hair, spiked and feathered like some predatory dinosaur, a creature out of time. Up close, you could see that her irises were yellow, but the whites of her eyes were red. Though she didn't have a beak, there was something decidedly pointy about her face. Her teeth were a burnished copper tint, and the hands peeking out from under her wings were talons. One morning, you slept through your alarm, all four of them, and startled awake to the sound of a sharp, piercing whistle. You blinked until the world came into focus. The sound continued while you stumbled upright and felt your way to the window. You half expected some dog walker trying to attract canine attention, or a particularly rude catcaller making a nuisance of himself below. Instead, you saw her crouched on your neighbor's balcony like a gargoyle, the half-crushed corpse of a dog held in her claws. She had craned her neck to squint into your apartment. As you stood there, in your old, stained nightshirt, she whistled one more time and bobbed her head in apparent satisfaction. "Thanks," you rasped, "for the wake-up call." You couldn't afford to get fired. Not yet. When you were closer to the end, sure, but you didn't want to burn out on the streets. The vulture woman bobbed her head again, sharp teeth curved in what looked like a smile. Then she stretched her clever talons out, plucked a rib from the dog's open chest, and bit down. The crunch of bone filled your apartment as you got ready for work. During lunch break, you searched for bone-eating vulture on your phone. This time, you found a match. And I'm going to call it there because I was asked to leave off on a cliffhanger.
And you certainly did.